Welcome, everyone. Welcome to tonight's lecture, which is part of the Hyde lecture series hosted by the College of Architecture. My name is Zach Porter. I'm an assistant professor here in the college, and I have the pleasure of introducing tonight's speaker, Nicole McIntosh, who is one half of Architecture Office, along with Jonathan Louie. Before I introduce Nicole, I want to remind you that we'll have a brief question and answer session immediately following the lecture, so please stick around for that as well. Architecture Office is a Zurich-based Swiss-American practice led by Nicole McIntosh and Jonathan Louie. Their office engages with a variety of scales and typologies, ranging from restaurants and workspaces to exhibition design and houses. Recent work has been exhibited at the Yale Architecture Gallery, the Kunsthaus Glarus, and the 2021 Seoul Biennial of Architecture and Urbanism. Since moving to Zurich in 2021, the Swiss-American Architecture Office has taken on cross-cultural influences from the United States and Switzerland. The work of the office focuses on the role of cultural imagery in their approach to typology, materials, and assembly. And as you all know, Nicole McIntosh and Jonathan Louie of Architecture Office are the 2023-2024 Hyde Chairs of Excellence here in the college. They've been teaching seminars and studios, as many of you have participated in. And I just sat on a review today with their studio with really impressive design work. So I'm very much looking forward to what Nicole has in store for us this evening. Please join me in welcoming Nicole McIntosh.
All right, thank you, Zach, for the thoughtful introduction. It's really, really nice to be here. We like to thank Dean Kevin van den Wimmelenberg, the Hyde Chair Lecture Committee, David Carley for all the support in inviting us to share our work today with you. So we're thankful to have research and teaching support this year from the College of Architecture and Hyde Chair Endowment. Thank you also to the students who have been working with us and are here tonight. So how we forgot where we're from and learned to live abroad. Our lecture title today is inspired, and we borrow from Kurt Forster's recent essay for our book publication. So we're, as Zach mentioned, a Swiss-American design office practicing in Zurich and have the privilege to still be teaching in the US. Sometimes we forget where we're from due to working in both countries, and Jonathan being from the United States and me being from Switzerland. So I love to always drop in this image, which is very different than the formal lecture picture of us in action. So this is really us. So while context is often simply understood as our immediate physical environment, our work asks how today imagery produces new contexts. In the design process, imagery serves us to expand the notion of an architectural type and approaches materials and assemblies. In our office, we investigate broader effects of this phenomenon, acknowledge associated design changes and challenges, and reveal characteristics that create other contexts. So here an example of what we mean by that. ShareQues is a co-workspace office that you see on the right in Syracuse that was influenced by stills of Jacques Tati's Playtime movie as well as Robert Irwin's double-blind installation. This interest also led to an examination of Swiss-themed codes of New Glarus, Wisconsin. New Glarus is a Swiss immigrant town where images of the motherland are the context and pictures are the description, basically. So the town uses photographs of Swiss chalet imagery in their building codes to make sure that the buildings look Swiss. More about that later. And our interest with images also challenges traditional materials and assembly. And it all began basically with digital images that we can build. So here of one of these examples where we use texture map and Photoshop. This fall, we're starting a construction, our first construction, ground up in Switzerland, a small vacation house in the mountains, a collaboration with our friends from Collar Architects. We're also testing some plaster techniques for that. And since moving to Zurich 2 years ago, our office has been involved in building design competition with a focus on housing. So this one was a 36 apartment competition. This is due to the country's demand of multifamily housing and apartment buildings. So in today's lecture, we will give a brief overview of our office and present a selected body of work, and then speak about the work in collaboration with the students as Hyde Chairs of Excellence. With the work, we will show some of the images we've collected and how they're mediators for our work and research. While context is often simply understood as our immediate physical environment, the following research asks how in contemporary culture the dissemination of imagery produces new contexts that are composites of foreign and site-specific elements. So New Glarus is a Swiss immigrant town in Wisconsin. It has the aspiration of preserving and perpetuating the architectural charm of their cultural heritage to enhance the social and economic base of the community. Its architectural elements accessorize the building to create an attractive Swiss appearance to visitors. Here, some photographs of these houses. So it was founded in 1845, and because of its economic downturn in the 1960s, it converted its building to its image of cultural heritage to attract tourism. Here, an example of Main Street in 1902 on the left, and on the right, one of these houses along Main Street that was converted into a Swiss chalet. This intention in New Glarus is called Swissifying. It's an official term in the town. And since 1999, the city has regulated the construction of new buildings or alteration of existing buildings in the commercial district via its building codes. So Chapter 118, Building Construction, Article 2, Swiss Architectural Theme, regulates the setting and makes sure that the Swiss aesthetic of the town gets enhanced. And determine whether the proposed Swiss, the Design Review Committee, consults Swiss design examples of picture books listed here on the right bottom. And here are a few images of what's in those publications. So these images portray obviously a variety of traditional chalet styles in the cantons of Switzerland, but altogether the collection simplifies many very distinct variations of Swissness in architecture into a composed style that is recognized as simply Swiss. Or to quote Kurt Forster in a recent article he wrote for our book about the Swiss chalet, from the variety of actual constructions, whether Tyrolean blockhouses with jigsaw balconies, Swiss stone buildings under enormous eaves, French chalets or Italian company, the ease in which they blend together produces a new creature that is nowhere else to be found, the alpine house of the collective imagination. With this interest in how images suddenly act as the context for new designs in New Glarus, we documented existing buildings and designed some ourselves based on this building code. So on the left, you see the buildings in New Glarus that were documented in the downtown district. And on the right are the drawings of key parts from Swiss-themed Faller models, which we used to build speculative designs. So the first model series documents the original houses as a traditional Swiss Modellbaubogen, which is a flat elevation drawing that transforms into a model upon folding cut instructions. Used for military purposes, beginning around 1540, this model type was adopted by Swiss educator Edwin Morf in 1952 as a popular tool for teaching history and geography to elementary school children in Switzerland. So he intended to teach students the regional differences through the history of Swiss architecture. Here, one of Morf's originals as an example. And based on these drawings and first models, we looked into the details and construction techniques of each building, understanding how the photographs of Swiss chalet style were translated into the build. Both of these documentations were actually built as part of a fabrication seminar we taught a few years back. And the third model series we built in the office, it imagines possible variations by playing with the images referenced in Article 2. Each model in this series is built out of selected elements of Swiss-themed kits from the train company Faller Modellbau. They make a Swiss chalet series that use the same building elements that are described in Article 2. So each building proposal uses part of one kit model, and the volume is defined by the pitch, which is the only limitation given by the code. So each model was designed in Rhino based on the size of building elements from this kit. So the drawings register the number of the kit's part used, but there's not a section or a plan that goes with it. The free model series became part of an exhibition called Swissness Applied that was previously shown at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, the Kunsthaus Glarus, the Yale Architecture Gallery, and the University of Colorado, and the FAR Lausanne in Switzerland. And it will be, if anyone is in late fall in Zurich, it will be exhibited there at the Zatz Bellerive. So like buildings in New Glarus how they translated to building assemblies, the titles of the model series are literal translations of various Swiss-German figure of speeches whose Swiss meanings don't align with the American vocabulary. For example, tell no cabbage is a Swiss-German figure of speech that means tell no nonsense in American English. In each of the three venues, the elements are roughly the same: a table landscape, packing peanuts, as a model background, and viewfinders that are attached to the tables. So this is an example of probably one of the larger exhibitions we did at the Kunsthaus Glarus, and you can see the layers of tables that display models and drawings. The exhibition works as an archive. Each model has a number and corresponds to one another or a drawing. So not always depends on the size of the venue, not always all the models are actually exhibited, but they're actually like an archive selected. And mounted on the tables are viewfinders that display imagery that are related to the building that it points to. So these are either illustrations of the code, pictures of the existing building, or model photographs. And we invite, basically, with this, visitors to click through them to understand the contextual framework of each building. Here, the first exhibition at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. And this work has also been documented in form of a website by our graphic designer, IM Bureau Berlin. So it actually works if you go to an exhibition and you don't see all the model, you can go onto the website and see what you're missing. And we recently published the book called Swissness Applied, Learning from New Glarus, that includes additional research and in-depth information about the project. So the book basically compiles our fieldwork on the buildings in the village, as well as design projections based on the local building codes, and some additional research. So in search of this other chalet and methods to reimagine it, we are now excited to be working with an automated method to generate chalet images, a method that shows a certain naivety towards existing conventional details of the Swiss chalet. So similar to how New Glarus adopts, mixes, and matches Swiss chalet elements, here as an example on the left, the Swiss chalet details in New Glarus, and on the right, one of the images created by Midjourney. And for us, Midjourney becomes interesting as it produces unseen details and construction efforts that are based on existing notions of the Swiss chalet. So to generate these images, we're feeding or prompting a contemporary project with innovative material use in combination with a variation of Swiss chalet descriptions. And from these, we are selecting the details we're interested in translating into the build. So in this instance, it was the chalet sign, which appears and is apparently a very characteristic building feature of the Swiss chalet for the AI platform. And then they were modeled in Rhino, 3D printed in parts. And for construction, we used Bondo as a filler to make the joints seamless, and then they were painted. Here another example from the same image. So there are always two that we're building from one image. This is the roof ridge. There are 6 more that are currently getting printed and complete this series. And this is work in progress at the moment, and it will be exhibited as part of the chalet exhibition at the Zatzbellrief at the end of the year. Here are 4 more totems that we are building at the Nebraska, at the UNL Innovation Studios. These are fresh, actually, out of the large 3D printer that came out this morning. So they're a little smaller, but still pretty big, and we're excited we get to do that here. And simultaneously, the students in our fabrication seminar are working on these chalet-ish details and are currently learning how to fabricate them. So the course is being taught at the Innovation Studios, and we've been very fortunate to collaborate with Jerry Reef and his team. Thank you. But to paraphrase and maybe give you a certain statement about this work, so to paraphrase a recent article in the Times Magazine by Ray Naylor, one might argue that Midjourney is a readily available program that cannot truly innovate, as it generates images mashed up of our old tropes of the Swiss chalet, repackaged for our consumption, similar to the Swiss chalet style of New Glarus. However, we see it as a chance to evolve and expand this well-known type, and through building the generated image details, we're hoping to understand the potential of it better. For us as architects, a way to think beyond the obvious and freeing ourselves from the assumption of what a Swiss chalet is. Fabricating Swissness is a multimedia installation that was shown at the 2021 Seoul Biennial for Architecture and Urbanism. And the theme was Crossroads, Building the Resilient City. With the project, we are wondering, if the components of the Swiss chalet are separated from the architecture of its origin, i.e. balconies and shutters without the building, is it still perceived as Swiss? And while working through this question, we kept looking back at our drawings of the Faller model kits that isolate these elements. And basically, this was our proposal, or our installation finally, that tilts up 4 thin elevations with elements, speaker, and pictures collected into a single structure. And the big topic was, of course, what color will it have? And we used the shade of red. Actually, the shade of red used in the flag in the Swiss flag was not defined by law prior to 2017. And since then, the color of the flag is defined as pure red. So we chose a variation of that. To develop the structure and connections, we worked together with engineers from Arab Los Angeles and a metal fabricator of the Automated Fabrication Lab at Texas A&M University. There are 40 total 1/4 inch thick aluminum pieces that were water jet cut, then filed down and finished to cleanly accept the threaded barrel connections. Housed within the installation are photographs of selected buildings in New Glarus and hardware for 2 speakers. The speakers play interviews with Benedikt Wechsler, former Swiss Consul General of San Francisco, and New Glarus architect Will Gallagher. Altogether, the structure, audio, and photographs represent different qualities of Swissness for visitors. Let me see if this works.
Swissness is a mindset for me. Sustainable, accessible, welcoming, but also using and creating innovative materials.
So how do we fabricate Swissness? Swissness is achieved by evoking the forms and styles of Switzerland. Its aim is to elicit the aura of alpine charm and the folksy hospitality of the original.
Swissness in architecture means for me the beauty of creating spaces and atmospheres for dialogue, but also for protection of people and the environment.
One of the earliest examples in our work with processing images, Big Will and Friends, is an installation that positions wallpaper as a host for painting the wall to meet. Our installation reconfigures the popular Morris & Co. wallpaper Thistle, designed by John Henry Dearly in the late 19th century, into an inhabitable visual environment. Shown on the right is one of a series of test drawings that collapses multiple Thistle patterns onto themselves. We were interested in how the pattern appears to change. Here are examples where the pattern is applied to the scrim surface. On the right are patterns for the Thistle image. And on the inside of the scrim, the pattern scales up, and on the outside, it actually repeats. So on the left, the photograph is taken from the interior of the installation, foregrounding the scaling pattern. When seen together, the installation constructs a visual condition by actualizing this Thistle pattern with paint, pigment, and scrim. Altogether, Big Will's appearance flattens and extends its overall volume, connecting the fashionable appearance of wallpaper with the physical support of the wall. So the scrim material produces shifting visual effects as light changes throughout the day, causing the viewer's perception to oscillate between material deployed as image and image deployed as material. Here we worked with choreographer Stephanie White during the performance. During the performances is when we consider the work to be complete, and the performers basically inhabit the installation in different ways, producing new visual relationships. So the next project is an unbuilt project, but one that we still see value in for our work. Actually, it was the first project I think we ever collaborated together. So House in House is a single home that deploys two images of its context. So that of an existing log cabin and of the surrounding forest as a generator for the design. So on site is an existing cedar log kit cabin built in the 1950s that faces Lake Walker, close to Seattle. Like the existing cabin, we designed a new internal cabin with minimal infrastructure and facilities one needs for living. So the bedroom is above, under the pitched roof of the house. And inside basically is the core, surrounded by an open living space. So the outer house shelters the inner house, producing two levels of permanence, the concrete inner core and the shingle exterior. Photographs of the surrounding forest are projected onto the outer house, and the photographs are taken from multiple perspectives, creating a camouflage graphic that merges the house with the surrounding environment in the summer, or making the house stand out in winter. While the project did not get built, in our work we always seek to construct unexpected details that create an additional alienation from the expecting. So for example, by integrating the gutter into the form of the house, it allows us, or the pitched roof, it allows us to reduce the distinction between roof and wall into a singular shape, producing an unexpected detail that is an additional estrangement from the typical track home. Syracuse is a 3,000 square foot co-work space that we built in 2019 in upstate New York. It's a co-working space located within a Syracuse downtown building from 1928. The design for the co-work office is made by an arrangement of blocks that define a series of interstitial lounge spaces throughout the open office. And the blocks are freestanding black cubicles and a kitchen island set in an interior of the room. We were always fascinated about the cubicle and its idea of privacy within an open office concept. And for the project, we collected many iconic stills, such as from the movie Playtime by Jacques Tati, and the photographs of Robert Probst Herman Miller design on the right. And so simultaneously, we also thought of other cubicle and repetitive forms that offer a semi-private work environment and began to explore and expand the notion of a cubicle that divides yet engages with the surrounding space. Shown here is Robert Irwin's sculpture, Double Blind, a series of cubic rooms that challenge perception and experience. So whereas the cubicles act as a structure we're working within, the long service island acts as a conduit for congregation and interaction. Ringing the open workspace space are 7 private offices in the back, a conference room, and a telephone booth. So with the design, we were interested in understanding how we could interrupt the traditional repetition of the cubicles without subdividing them, as well as encouraging connection and the relationship between the singular and shared office spaces. So built into these cubicles are a series of 3 feet wide and 7 feet high openings that allow for moments of engagement between desk units and invite people to share across workspaces. Although the cubicles and their openings are all of uniform size and shape, the placement of the openings are different on each side, and this generates a kind of variety or different interaction with the surrounding spaces, depends how you place them within the space. And unlike the traditional enclosed cubicles, separated by opaque half walls that disconnects worker from neighboring workspaces, the Syracuse cubicles are crafted from black mesh screens that filter the appearance of the spaces behind. And the cubicles act as a series of minimal objects that occupy, frame, and define regions by inhabiting a larger room. They promote simultaneously interactive and private work environments. To attach the screen flush with the structure, we worked with a metal fabricator that was local in Syracuse to develop the detail. And we came up with a scheme of sandwiching the screen between two pieces of aluminum and screwing in every 6 inches. So table and lamp are built into the cubicle to not disrupt the minimal form. The last project before we talk about the high chair work, we like to show is interested in the idea of the mirror image, its reflection and reflecting. So All Square is actually a nonprofit and restaurant in Minneapolis whose mission aims to employ formerly incarcerated individuals. The project is an adaptive for use space set in an 80-year-old building. The name All Square is reference to the notion that those who have paid their debts to society are square and free to move forward within a clean slate. So it is also a nod to the shape of the fast casual restaurant's signature dish, the grilled cheese sandwich, to give the nonprofit mission and branding of All Square a physical presence. Mirrors and frames stretch the square of the square shape. So the design converts 900 square feet into an open floor plan with insertions that shape the room by encouraging the occupants to look closely at the other side. And with the mirrors, the project puts the spectator on show, similar to Dan Graham's performance audience mirror. And it focuses the audience on looking and being looked at, and observing and being observed. So a mirror image optically responds to the human observer's movement, reflecting the environment based on the viewer's position. In doing so, they act, as Graham describes, they expand the image of the perceiver not only of the room, but also of the people within and oneself. So in the space, the frame focuses, separates, and links, while the compounding mirror images reflect things into double or triple position. So this results in multiple scenes that expands the narrow restaurant space and challenges the occupants to see something and someone from another point of view. Both elements focus and unify the interactions between users that are both planned and unplanned, and they construct different areas of seating, meeting, and working, such as the point of sales, the bar, or at the entrance. By using an aluminum C channel instead of a square tubing for the frames, it allows the owner flexibility in repositioning the LED lights, and the color chartreuse, blue, and magenta light help to distinguish the different scenes in the space. They're also the color of the branding of All Square. And to insert the frames into the floor, we worked with a fabricator to develop custom female bases that connect the building, to the building's subfloor. So one thing, to mention is that because it was an existing building and it had a very slanted floor, we had to find a way of making or straightening out these frames. And so it basically works like a Christmas tree. To do so, the screws that are in the custom base act like the screws in a Christmas tree, and it allows us flexibility with making adjustment to level the frames on site. So altogether, the lights, mirror, and frames physically and visually shape the room by encouraging the occupants, don't judge, just eat, and to look closely to the other side. By configuring the locations of the mirror images, they blur social and spatial boundaries by displaying many circumstances throughout the day. So, as part of this lecture, Jonathan and I thought it would be nice to show some recent work in progress and what we're working on with our students here at UNL, the College of Architecture. So we're exploring all together the first time the Swiss chocolate factory topic. And we really wish we could show all the work because it's super exciting what we're doing, and it's, I think, exciting for the students as well. Here an example drawing from our seminar that documents Maison Caillé by Cord Johnson. So mixed from cacao beans that were grown in other lands and shipped to factories across Switzerland, Swiss chocolate and the image of its production facilities are often associated with the image of Switzerland, its Swissness portrayed around the world. So since the mid-19th century, chocolate factories are shown on candy wrappers, advertisement, and movies, and they're more than places for production, but also represent innovation as architectural form. In these 2 semesters, we experience Swiss culture and chocolate factories by learning about Swiss chocolate and also eating it, of course. Its tradition, its production, and its manifestation as architecture, so through the chocolate factory. And both studios were research, fabrication, and design studios that examine the way images construct our built environment, and specifically how the Swiss chocolate factory can be reinterpreted today. So while many chocolatiers today celebrate their factory heritage through new attractions, such as museums, visitor centers, and even in the future Gaillet's theme park, the old factories themselves have been torn down or their appearance renovated. So here an example on the right, Kristen Gantenbein's Lindt Home of Chocolate that was recently built, that it is actually right now ranked as the #1 tourist attraction in Switzerland. So while the design process, with the design process, our interest was to build new building characteristics through different means. So in the fall semester, we worked with a process of AI, and we're asking ourselves, how does AI understand the Swiss chocolate factory? So here an example. And in the current studio, the factory advertisements are the starting point for their investigations. Here an example of Tobler, which is Toblerone, which you probably know. And each student team having their own painting or print as a site. So here you see an elevation of chocolate Tobler, nowadays Toblerone, drawn from an advertisement by Megan, Kayla, and Hannah. So finding the characteristics of their chocolate factory by first making large-scale models and drawings. So here another photograph of examples, so they all look very different. Another one. So as part of our research project, together with the graphic design company IM Bureau Berlin, we're expanding the Swissness Applied website that documents this research and shares the models. So the website is currently in progress and will be completed by the end of the academic year, which is very soon. And the idea is to feature the student work beyond the classroom and hopefully find support to make an exhibition like we did with the Swissness Applied Research. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole, for a really great presentation, wonderful work. We have some time to take a few questions from the audience. Got one.
I saw the Switzerland ranked 9th in the happiness this year, and America was about 23, I believe. What can America learn from Switzerland, and does architecture play a role in that?
It's a really good question. And I think the answer would be very different if Jonathan would be here. I mean, let's say this. Someone lately told me that he thinks that that we got the best of 2 worlds because we teach in the US, which is really exciting, and we practice in Switzerland because it's exciting. And I think I really have to think about this a lot because, yes, I mean, it's nice to build in Switzerland still because, you know, it's not such a large country, right? Customized details are still possible and people actually do pay for it because building is anyways expensive, so you can't just build. And then the exciting thing is the teaching here, because we think about pedagogy way more and about representation maybe than we would if we would be teaching in Switzerland architecture. So I think there's to have a very targeted kind of architecture answer to that. For me personally, I was always very happy here, and I felt very welcomed. And I think there's something really nice as being an architect going abroad and being somewhere else, because I think you get out of your comfort zone and you feel like what your potential is and what you could do, understanding like a new culture, adapting. And so I think that's at the moment very exciting for Jonathan. And me being back, I grew up there, so I'm used to it. But I think I often, every time I think of me being in the US or being here right now, is a really fun thing, and I really appreciate being able to do that. So it's always greener on the other side,
Just to pick up on what you were speaking about in terms of representation in teaching, I think that's one of the things I've always admired the most about your practice is the role that representation plays, and not just the quality of representation, which is beautiful, but the way in which it becomes a site for intellectual exploration, and the drawings and the images, the models take on agency in that sense, sometimes in a discrete way. I think the Swissness applied models, if I'm understanding correctly, only exist as models. There's no plans or sections that belong to those. And we saw that in your studio work this afternoon as well, that students might be asked to only think in section at a certain moment in time. I wonder if you could speak more about how representation informs your practice, but also the way you teach, and maybe specifically the relationship you see between images and images and drawings in your work these days.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think representation is always such a big term, right? Because there's so many different ways. I think for us, it's been really, we have a very different background, right? So Jonathan studied at UCLA, where fabrication was a big part, I think, of education, and I would say like 90% of all the fabricating details and so on is his. And that's a way, and he usually works through models and like one-to-one details and works with so that's a form of representation which I think he's extremely strong. But then also the value about the drawing. And for me, I think I've become more and more interested in photography and how photography plays a role within architecture or the architecture discourse. And of course, this idea of the cultural identity and what that means. But I think it's also, we also had the privilege to always have academic positions in the US, right? So we were here for 8 years. So Jonathan actually graduated from UCLA and started right away teaching, and I came for a fellowship the year later in Taliesin. And so, to actually have the time to think about, okay, what do I produce next in order to explore the full potential of what I could design? And this is, in my opinion, through representational means in architecture, that has for sure helped, to kind of think about these things, now it's different because we're in Switzerland, right? And we primarily we're not on a tenure track, so we do have an office where we want to build. So it's a very different situation because somehow you can't take years anymore to think about it. So but we're still doing it nevertheless, right? We're doing these 3D prints. We love to explore with AI. The teaching helps, of course, to explore that as well. I think it's just a love for it that we think that way. And because we're from two different points of departure, I think it makes it even more interesting because together it's much better than if we would do it by ourselves, and we have really interesting discussions about it. And so I think that's really, and we never take on too much. We rather say, no, we can't do it than to do too many things at a time. But often I think that the intellectual part, or maybe the things we're doing are not so obvious the moment we're doing it. So this is also maybe something we often tell the students. So often it takes like a year. So the totem project, for example, we're very hesitant to talk about this project because it's not been completed and we haven't had the distance to rethink what we've done, which often then also has maybe an indication of what we should have produced additionally in order to understand the project, right? So sometimes it's also, so often it's actually looking backwards and then understanding, oh, what did we try to do? You know, it's not always so obvious, I think.
Thank you. Are there other questions? Yes.
Oh.
Thanks, Nick. Thanks for the presentation. Bearing in mind you work with chocolate a lot, I was going to ask you a question about taste, but I'm not going to ask you about the question. Because what you just said was very interesting in terms of thoughts about research and things that we struggle with here in terms, also in our graduate program, about how we define research and how it's conventionally understood and how it is less conventionally understood as a reflective process of what you've done, and the notion that the research might happen after the fact or after the making or something like that. I wonder if you can talk about that in the wider context of being in Switzerland, within your wider context of, like, you know, Switzerland is, you know, arguably the place where all the best architects have ever come from, you know, because Corb was Swiss as well, wasn't he? You know, just in terms of that sense of, you know, how you sit within that environment of practice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really good question because, I mean, originally I left Switzerland because I didn't want to be in that position, right? Because I was in a position where I had to, like, figure out how we get the next project and so on, and I wasn't really so, I think that's not really my intention. I would love to do nonprofits my whole life and not make a dollar, but I think that's just not the reality. I think that it's become, so, I mean, sure, there are a lot of really great architects, and I think the potential is in the fact that there's just, like, the material industry and so on, and the craft is really good. There's no mass production, really, right, because it's a too small country. So, it all makes sense in a way. I mean, I personally think there's really good work coming from Belgium or Spain as well currently, or Portugal, with very little means. I can also say that I think that the restrictions have really tightened quite a bit, and not only from an energy point of view, but which I can support, but I think also in terms of how things look. I think the often if you do a competition, it's very apparent how things should look like, and it's maybe not so explorative as we would want that to be. And it's always beige, you know, it blends in, and it's like, yeah, I find that really difficult, to be honest. And it's also different. I think it also depends where you build, right? So this project we're doing with our friends, they're the very experienced architects who really built, and they always like what we do. I mean, we studied together at the ETH, and they started their office, went a different path, and I did my path. And so it's kind of interesting to get together again and see what they've done. And they've built a lot, but they're not really, I mean, they're happy with what they built now, but not with everything, because maybe they would also like to reflect a little more on what they've done. And so it's a really interesting collaboration because they have so much knowledge that we do not have, because we don't have, we weren't in Switzerland for 8 years or so. So I think there's a lot of knowledge. I mean, the same thing here, but also I think depends where you build, like a lot of restriction, right, with building codes. And I mean, real estate, I think, becomes more and more apparent to be part of, or integral to be able to, because there are a lot of really good architects. And it's not a protected title technically, so anybody can have an office and build.
Oh, Nicole, great lecture. So have you built anything in New Glarus? Have you a commission
No.
for building? So to speak?
No, we once were asked, and it was, we reached out again, but that kind of didn't come through. The closest we got, there's in the book we wrote, we actually, because one of the journalists that wrote an article about the exhibition asked us, have you tried to pass these designs through the building codes? And we're like, no, this is brilliant. We tried that at least, you know. So it was a fictional site, we made proper permit drawings and submitted it and got the feedback back. And so there's a whole paragraph or like a whole page in the book about that. But I think it was not Swiss enough, was basically the consequence. But I think I want to credit New Glarus in the sense that it was also during the pandemic, right? So we couldn't meet in person. So I think if we had the conversation going, what Swiss really means for us, I think it's like a conversation you have with historic preservationists on other sides, right? If you arguably can say why you're doing certain things and what the reasoning is, I think it would have been very exciting for them as well. So, and they even say that they are not architects, right? They're just have experience with Switzerland.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fascinating because I would say probably most architects sort of recoil when they confront visual design guidelines like that, that sort of force an aesthetic on a project even before the project is conceived. But the people who write those guidelines always fail at describing what they really want, and then they always end up in a sort of a bit of a battle with someone like maybe you two who would challenge those guidelines and push their limits well beyond where they probably imagine that they would go, which is the sort of authentic sort of imagery that they seem to feel that they're after.
Yeah, I mean, we always, like it's always a question, right? Is it successful or not? Or is it like, I mean, we had recently a conversation with someone who basically totally dismissed New Glarus for what it is. And I actually think it's fascinating because the way it was built was actually very successful, especially, maybe not so much, so there are two commercial districts. One is newer along the highway and one is old in the downtown historic district. And that part is extremely successful in the sense that, the American side is represented. The American dream is so represented, right? And just saying, okay, we can do this. And yes, they did it in a way, right? Because they have tourists that come. And it's not just a copy. It's like there's influences from both sides. And so we're curious how, like, the future, there's actually not so much built under this theme code. So it will be interesting in a few years when, during the pandemic, obviously there were not so many projects. And so now, hopefully, we'll see what gets built.
So my question is the design process influenced by reality or inspiration? The reason why I'm saying reality is there are very fascinating buildings across the globe. For example, Raffles Hotel in Singapore and Burj Khalifa in Dubai. So when you come up with those buildings, is it inspiration or is it just the reality? And also there's a constant argument between architects and engineers because they come up with all these buildings or these structures, and then engineering sometimes have argument about putting those things together. So is it inspiration or is it just the reality that takes a big part of your design process?
I think it's a really good question. I think the engineer collaborations have been really fun because we always work with the same people at Arab who, for the installation, for example, we really wanted to make it super, super thin and tight and we kind of pushed for it almost being impossible. And I think it depends with who you work with, but I think the engineers we worked with, they're actually really excited to kind of try something that may not be right away possible, right? like in terms of like feasibility of like holding it up or so. And we've done another project with them that we didn't show tonight, but that had a really, really thin column. And I mean, there's this whole discussion that, you know, it might hold, and there are these ways of making the thin columns, but maybe help to like not make the column thicker, but find ways, right, of detailing it so that it holds up, even though the column is technically not thick enough to hold the load. And so I think those conversations, I mean, I would say Jonathan and I would both agree on this answer that those are the really fascinating and really fun conversations, because in the end, we always build, right? We're not just we're built like not necessarily a up-ground building, right? But we always try to make something physical, like with the models we make or the installations or so. So I think for us, actually, those conversations are really, really interesting. I think the limitation is, at least from my point of view, is a little bit with clients, depends for what it is. So we had always more corporate clients, right? The nonprofit or the actually we worked with developers for this co-work space, but it's a different thing if you work with people when you build for their company than if you built the one-time dream home for the private client. And so, like, I think it's just different, right? And I think there's maybe, for us at least in our experience, there was always more freedom. And maybe this is also because we don't have a portfolio of houses that we built, right? But in our experience, the building for companies or nonprofits has been really rewarding because, you know, they just say, okay, do it, you know. But I mean, yeah, we do work with a lot of people. I mean, with the nonprofit, we worked with a branding company that they had, right? Worked with a graphic designer, worked with a local architect, so we're not licensed in the US. We're licensed in, well, I guess, we can sign in Switzerland as well for architecture drawing permits and things. So it's different, right? So we also had to always collaborate with someone who actually built the things we're drawing, and often it was not where we were, which is also like, also we had different experience with that. Like one was a really good one and one was okay. But yeah, I anyways think it's a team sport, right? So as much as I want to be inspired by, you know, taking a shower, I think it's always about talking to someone, right? And finding your way.
I think we may have time for one more question. If not, I can ask one. I have a question about audience and who you see as the audience for your work. I think there's many architects who design for other architects, and there's things that one could pick up on in your work from a disciplinary sense. But then there's also, I sense a kind of a larger audience that you're after as well. I think about the chocolate factory and the imagery you're studying of chocolate factories in these picturesque paintings and how they present their image to the world. Does it also work for you in that sense of looking more towards a much broader cultural audience than just the discipline of architecture?
I would say yes, but I've been told that we're not because, you know, it was interesting because with the Swissness Applied exhibition, the Swiss Architecture Museum wanted to exhibit the work. Still Architecture Museum, right? But they said that the work was too disciplinary and not the general audience wouldn't understand it as it is. And so it's interesting that we're now doing a larger exhibition that is around chalet work, where we also invited some other like Swiss schools to exhibit their work on the Swiss chalet with their students and things. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's a dream, right? To have projects on the side that you can just do for yourself without anyone really officially telling you can't. So I think, and then seeing what happens, right? Maybe people like it, maybe they don't, and that's okay. I don't think we're targeting too much, and probably we should, to have a business, right? Like, or practice. So it's not so easy.
Well, thank you once again, Nicole. Please join me in thanking Nicole McIntosh one last time.